those two things would have to be understood. Number one is, who am I? My life story, my personality, my skills, and my passions. And what about the world have I been called to engage?
Welcome to the Darren Earlywine podcast, where we awaken you to become who you were born to be. Here's your host, Darren Earlywine.
Welcome back. Question of the day. Are you at a crossroads or in a crisis of calling right now in your life? Let's jump in and figure it out. Welcome back to the Darren Earlywine podcast. I am your host, Darren Earlywine. And in case I forget my initials or you do, you can always look at the coffee cup in the wall. Sometimes things get crazy. You're not sure what's going on. All right. Had to find a reason early to use the laugh track. It's good. We're getting things going here, right? It's getting cold here in Indiana, and so we got to keep a way to keep our spirits up and move in that direction. But listen, this week I'm really, really stoked about the conversation. We couldn't have a more appropriate conversation for this podcast and interview. We're sitting down with Dave Rodriguez. He was a megachurch pastor here in Indiana, 42 years at a church, and recently walked away to pursue what he believes is his next step in his destiny. And he is the CEO and leader of Destiny Works, where he helps people uncover their God-given destiny. I mean, hello, we're trying to awaken you to become who you were born to be. This is hand in glove, ladies and gentlemen. But you're going to love this interview. And the thing about it is, I want you to think about this. I don't know how long you've been in your career. I don't know how long you've been pursuing your sense of calling right now. But I am 42, okay? Some of you are listening going, oh my gosh, bro is old, right? Not that old. We don't need to use the laugh track for that one. Who pushed the button? Wait a second, I did. Dad joke. Hey, no, but listen, 42 years young, I am. Dave has been pursuing and living in a sense of calling that he'll explain in the story that God unleashed in him and summoned him into in his teenage years. And then he found the courage and the faith to walk away from a career that had given him a sense of calling, a sense of identity, provision, power. I mean, a lot of things. And the story is amazing. I can't wait to get into it. We're going to learn so much from it coming up here in just a minute. And listen, I want to get to the mailbag real quick. Mailbag came in this week. If you guys listened a couple weeks ago, we interviewed my friend David Lowry, and I call him DL, so does many of his friends. And DL's episode, if you listen to it, you know it was heavy issues dealt with in that podcast, talking about sexual identity, talking about abuse, talking about abortion, talking about physical or mental abuse. It was a heavy episode. Talked about battling shame and how it lies to us and tries to shape our identity. A lot of hope in that episode as well, but got quite a bit of feedback from you guys on that. And for the mailbag, I want to jump in. I'll omit the name here to protect the innocent. But email came through and said this: Darren, this podcast hit me right in the feels, like all the feels. I feel like gender and sexual identity is the third thing after politics and religion that people don't like to talk about. That's true. I admit I haven't suffered as harshly as David, but I have a lot of friends and family who are gay and transgendered, and I have always been unsure how to talk to them about the gospel. I want us to not be afraid to talk about tough issues here on the podcast. It's a challenge for me. I don't like conflict. I just kind of like to go with the flow. I don't like pain. Enneagram 7 here, okay? So to dive into some of the more difficult topics are not my favorite, but I know we have to, because there are great answers to really great questions. And God has answers to things that confuse us that if we seek and ask, we will find. In fact, we're going to talk about that, or just talked about that last week, and some of the stuff that JT talked about in his interview, right? The blueprints of heaven, the things that God wants to bestow upon us. So good. But this email ended, and she said this: I'm still learning to trust God to fill the void of loneliness and heartbreak, but it's still hard. Because in this email, this friend went on to talk about some of the things that she's experienced and some of the pain and desire for connection and relationship that is still present in her life that she hasn't found. And she's wrestling through some difficult things. And what I want to say is to her and to many of you that are listening or watching, and you're in that place and there's still confusion, things haven't been buttoned up and perfectly figured out. I want to let you know that our team is praying for you. And I want you to know that there's hope. I I want you to know that you don't serve a God that is distant, that is far away from you, that is confused by you. He has created you on purpose and for a purpose, and he's near you, not far from you. And he's walking you through this. And I just want to encourage this dear friend that sent this in. It says she's still learning to trust God, to fill the void of loneliness and heartbreak. And it is still hard. I don't take away from that, but I want to encourage you. Don't give up. Keep running towards him because he will bring you truth and healing. And I want to encourage you as well. I sent an email back to this friend and I asked, if she'd considered any biblical counseling in her life before. And if you're at a place where you are dealing with a lot of a void of loneliness and heartbreak and you haven't stepped into some biblical Christian counseling before, I want to encourage you to take a look at it and ask God to give you the courage to move towards it, because what the devil wants to do when we're in a place of loneliness and heartbreak and brokenness is he wants to isolate us. He wants to take us and allow the shame to push us into a corner of fear where we hold it, and the only voice we hear is the negative one in our mind, which is either us beating ourselves up or the devil coming in and whispering lies to us. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't, to invite somebody that you can trust, a biblical Christian counselor, into that space to lead you away from the lies and into the truth and into the freedom that God has for you. And I pray that for our friend. And I just want to thank you so much for sending that email. Those of you that have reached out, please continue to do that. You can just email me directly. Darren@blackbirdmission.com is the email. Or if you want to text me, you can text me at 317-550-5070, and we can get in a text conversation. That's the mailbag. Let's jump into our intro to this interview with Dave Rodriguez. And you may be, like I said at the beginning, in an intersection of crisis or of confusion. And pursuing God's call in our life is an ever-expanding journey into wonder, one of the things that Dave says in this interview. But there are waypoints that bring us to decision points that I think are really difficult. And Dave in this interview is going to break down what he calls two truths that shape this journey into calling. He'll talk about it multiple times. The awesome truth, he calls it, and the awful truth. The awesome truth and the awful truth. And another way to maybe say this is the awesome promise and the awful problem is a way that I might frame that. Is that this awesome promise from God and this awesome truth that Dave is going to talk about is all about who I am and who God is. And this is the first understanding that we have to embrace and get our mind and our heart around if we're ever going to be able to step into calling. And believing that God is as good as he says he is, that he will be as faithful as he says he will be, and that he has actually created you on purpose and for a purpose. One of the scriptures Dave talks about in here is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, where it talks about that we are the workmanship of God, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he's prepared in advance for us to do. That's a scripture that has shaped so much of my thinking. It's worked into what we do with Spiritual DNA, the online course. But if you're not at that place where you believe that awesome truth, this awesome truth that God has created me on purpose and for a purpose, and there's actually a mission set out for me to step into, if you can't believe that from the depths of your being and act on that belief, you're going to struggle mightily to step into God's call in your life. And that was me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I probably told you guys a story before. I mean, I don't know if I've told it on the podcast before, but what I say is that God invites us, Jesus invites us to be yoked with him. And that's a scripture that was very monumental for me when I did finally step into a sense of calling for ministry. Jimmy Johnson was a guy, and he preached a sermon about being yoked with Christ. And I always joke and say that I struggled to get my head in the hole, right? The head of the yoke, the hole of the yoke, just to get in there next to Jesus and walk and work with him. I didn't want to put my head in the hole, and here's why. It's because I didn't trust God. This awesome truth that Dave's going to talk about in this interview, I didn't think it was awesome. I thought it was awful. I thought it was scary. And here's what I want to let you know, is if you have a lack of trust in the character of God, it will produce a lack of trust in the calling of God in your life. Let me say that again. If you have a lack of trust in the character of God, it will produce a lack of trust in the calling of God. If you don't trust his character, you're not going to trust his calling because you think he's going to do something that is not for your good, that he doesn't have your best interest at heart, that he doesn't know your strengths and abilities and your dreams. And that was me when I was a kid. I can joke about it, but I literally thought if I followed Jesus that I would die in some hut in Papua New Guinea. Okay, usually the thought of it would be I would be bitten by a black mamba as I'm being eaten by an anaconda. It was a double team situation. I don't know where the black mamas come out of, but they maybe get you high, anaconda gets you low. Before you know it, you're in the stomach of a snake. That's literally what I thought happened. You follow Jesus, that's how it ends. Or if it's not dying by snake bite, here's what I thought it was going to be, is I have always wanted to be cool since I was a little kid. I was the guy that was too cool for school at school. Right? Like, you ever see the kid? Think about ever being at a kids type of thing and they're doing fun kid stuff like songs and they're singing and dancing and like fun stuff that kids like. And then there's a guy standing on the back and he's kind of leaning against the wall and you're like, dude, we're doing the hokey pokey. Isn't it amazing? Right? And then there's a dude in the back who's just like, I'm cool. I don't know if you guys know. I'm 9 years old. Look how cool I am. That was me, right? Yes. And I missed the hokey pokey. I never turned myself around. I didn't know what it was all about. That's what I'm saying. And here's the deal is I remember meeting these missionaries, and I apologize to all missionaries who actually embody this remark. But these missionaries would come to our house and visit us, and I don't know why they always had a 4-pocket shirt. It was a buttoned-up shirt with 4 pockets in it. They had a terrible slideshow that usually had anacondas eating children and goats. And then they would talk about how awesome Jesus was, and they had bad body odor. They didn't have good hygiene. They were not cool at all. And I know you're listening right now, and you're like, I thought I was listening to a pastoral type of guy talk about Jesus-y stuff. This guy's a jerk. I'm just being honest with you. That's what I thought. I thought if I followed Jesus, I either die by anaconda or I end up like that guy. I'm probably going to lose my hair. I'm going to smell. I'm going to wear the shirts that look terrible. And I was like, that's not what I want to do. I had all these visions and dreams from 3rd grade. I wanted to play drums and tour the world playing drums and be in a rock band. And I was good at it. Right away, I could play drums. Like I was good at it from the moment I started doing it. It was a gift from God. He had entrusted me with gifts. Right? I was rhythmic. I could play drums. I could communicate. I had all these gifts. And I'm like, this is the perfect DNA for rock star. Just sign me up, God. And then I felt like God was inviting me to a sense of calling, that he was pulling and pushing me towards, as Dave will talk about, his call in my life and saying, Darren, there's something better I want for you. And the deal with me was I didn't trust God. I thought he would ruin my life. And here's the deal with you. If you're at a crisis right now or a crossroads of calling, and you just have to be honest with yourself and say, you know what? I don't trust God. I've got this big job. I'm making this big money, or I want to move into this kind of thing. I've always dreamed of this, but my heart is stirring. Something deep within me is saying that there's more, and I don't want to move towards it because I don't trust God. Here's step 1. Be honest with God that you don't trust him, because guess who already knows it? God. And the amazing thing about God is he's such a gentleman. He'll never force himself on you. He always invites you into this mission. He will not force you to do it. And so he will stand at the door of knock and gently invite you to follow him. So I love this passage of scripture in Matthew 11. Matthew 11, 28 through 30 is my life verse, right? Listen to what Jesus says. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. If you're at a place right now where you're at a crossroads or a crisis of calling and it feels heavy, you are weary, maybe it's been this year, maybe the career you had is gone or it's not coming back because of COVID, and you're at a crossroads right now and it feels very weary. It feels very heavy. It feels like a burden. Jesus says, listen, come to me. Not the rules, not the religion. Come to me personally, and I'll give you rest. I'll give you peace. He says, take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. You see, friends, as I put my head in the hole, as I got yoked with Jesus and began to walk with him, and it took years. It wasn't like at church camp, I was like, yes, I'll be yoked with Christ. I want to follow ministry. And the moment after that, I was like, got it, whatever you want, Jesus. I still am in a wrestling match with God from time to time to continue to step into this calling of my life. And time again, all of these years, what I have learned is what Jesus said is true, is that he's humble and he is gentle at heart. And the longer I walk with him, I find rest for my soul. And I find peace and purpose and passion in this calling. For his yoke is easy to bear, and the burden he gives you is light. That's what I want for you, friend. And that's what Dave wants. He's going to talk about it. In this process, when we begin to believe the awesome truth that we are created on purpose for a purpose, what begins to happen is you step into the ease, the rest, the lightness of this journey, and you find yourself walking in the wonder of destiny, is how Dave says it. And I love the way he said that. He says that God is not inviting us into a process of being duty-bound slaves. And that's key. If you don't trust God, that's what you begin. That's what I felt. I felt like I was being called into this duty. He was summoning me into like this fearful service where I would be a duty-bound slave and have to do what he wants. And when I figured out, no, he's humble and gentle at heart, and he's going to lead me to the rest of my soul. And what's going to happen is he's going to invite me and help me see the identity, the awesome truth that I am a son of God, created in the image of God, bestowed with the identity and authority of God to actually step into the wonder of his will. And it's the greatest adventure you could ever lead. And here's the deal. If you don't believe that, here's what you're going to do. You're going to settle for less. You're going to settle for less. It makes me think of the Foo Fighters songs. I love the Foo Fighters. They got a new album coming out. Can't wait to listen to it. But the song, Best of You, is someone getting the best of you. And that's what I want you to think about. Who's getting the best of you right now? Because if it's not God, it probably means that you've settled for some lesser calling than he's created you for. And it's probably because you don't trust him. Get honest. Draw close to him. Because the joy of this is when you begin to trust the heart of God and you give him your strengths, your abilities, you understand your spiritual DNA, which is going to be a great time for you to jump into Spiritual DNA, my online course. SpiritualDNA.me is where you find it, and start discovering the awesome truth about who God's created you to be. But then you can actually begin the process of stepping into the awful truth. And Dave will talk about in this interview this kind of Venn diagram of the awesome truth and the awful truth, or the awesome promise, right, and the awful problems of the world. The most broken and difficult places in the world, the biggest problems in the world, where they overlap with your awesome truth of who God's created you to be. That space between is your calling. And man, we can't get away from this theme. It's now like 6 episodes deep of asking ourselves, what are you going to do about the world's biggest problems? Like I'm not even trying to make this the theme of every single podcast. So if we're looking right now, I honestly, I'm not a prophet, but if we're looking for what God is saying to his church right now, and I don't speak to the whole church, I just speak to just a couple of you guys. But why do we keep coming back to this question every single week? What are you going to do about the world's biggest problems? Because guess what? We're it. Like Jesus already came and reconciled all things. He pushed reset. He had allowed us to now this awesome truth that we can be reconnected and brought to life by him, that we've already been given and entrusted everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Jesus Christ, right? 2 Peter 1:3-4. That we can participate in the divine nature and escape the corruption of the world caused by evil desires. We can partner with God as an intimate ally, as an ambassador of God, as if he was making his appeal through us. So we can actually join him and encourage people to be reconciled with God, to be friends with God, because he's already a friend of yours. Like this is available. And so we join up with him, filled with his spirit, enabled by his word, and we go out, and what we do is we join him in actually fixing the world's biggest problems. And that process is a process of wonder and joy and excitement and risk and faith and hope. And it's phenomenal. And it's what you were created for. But you're not stepping into that if you're not asking big enough questions about the biggest problems in the world. And Dave's going to talk about that. And man, I hope you're inspired by it. And that whole thought, it brings you back to something that Jonathan Tremaine Thomas said in our interview with him, right? When his mentor said, listen, follow your tears and they're going to lead you to your destiny. Your tears were probably connected to some of the biggest problems in this world, and as they intersected your life. And you follow them into the pain that you've experienced in your life and that exists in the world. You trust it to God. He heals it. He redeems it. He refines it. And then he puts you back in mission, back on the front lines to bring faith and hope and love and reconciliation and redemption and healing to people that have walked through some of the same pain or are walking through some of the same pain that you are. Listen, friend, you are in and on, or maybe at a crossroads of calling, a crisis, if you will. It's time to lean in to this awesome truth as you step and try to go against the awful problems of this world. And in the midst of that, in the intersection of that, is the wonder of your calling. And I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation with Dave Rodriguez as he unpacks what it looks like to become who you were born to be and step into your destiny. Let's get to this interview right now with Dave Rodriguez. Hey guys, before we jump into this interview, I'd like to take a minute and invite you into a unique opportunity to partner with our ministry. Each and every year, Giving Tuesday becomes one of the largest fundraising days for us to fund what we do to awaken people to become what they were born to be. I don't know if you've heard of Giving Tuesday before, but it's December 1st this year. It's right after Thanksgiving. It's before Christmas, and it's a day where people nationally come together to give to nonprofits and causes that are making a difference in their life. And I want to thank you for listening to the podcast, or for those of you that have gone through the Spiritual DNA workshop, or maybe you've seen us at a pub theology event. Well, Giving Tuesday is a day that allows us to raise the money we need to continue to stay on this mission and make a difference. And I'd love for you to join us this Giving Tuesday. All you got to do is this. Go to blackbirdmission.com/Giving Tuesday. And we'd ask that you would give at least $25, a $25 gift. You click on the link, you get generous. You're going to feel great about it. And it makes a huge difference for us. So please join us this Giving Tuesday, December 1st. Go to blackbirdmission.com/Giving Tuesday. Click the link, get generous, feel great about it. Let's jump into the interview. Hey, I'm excited to sit down today with Dave Rodriguez. Dave, you have been here in the Indianapolis area for many, many decades, and I'm so excited just to talk a little today about the new step, this new step towards your destiny that God has you stepping into. If you guys don't know Dave Rodriguez, he was a pastor for 42 years and now is the CEO of Destiny Works and a destiny coach, and doing his best to coach and to walk beside people to help them discover their destiny. And Dave, so excited having the podcast today.
Thanks, Darren. It's good to be here. Really glad.
So Dave, it's not every day that we get a chance to sit down and talk with someone who has 4 decades of perspective of pursuing purpose, and at the same time is stepping into a new adventure at this point in life. And that's a unique place. And I think it's going to, I can't wait to just learn personally of that journey. And what does that feel like to be at a place where you can look back and see such an awesome journey of pursuing destiny and purpose, but yet be energized and excited about this new adventure? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, there's the personal dimension of it that I am, at my age and after this many years of serving, moving into a new thing. So there is that personal destiny feeling. And at the same time, that's the idea that compels me. So there's an intersection of my own personal journey with that which I want to help people on. So yeah, what I'm helping people with is the thing that I'm committed to in my own life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not I guess what I'm seeing in that, and maybe you can elaborate, is that I think oftentimes we see this pursuit of discovering my destiny or discovering God's purpose or call on my life like it is a one-time thing. I do it, I figured it, I check it off the list, and then just go on autopilot. But that's not what you're saying. No,
not at all. So let me use my own story as an illustration. So when I was in my 20s, I had a peculiar sense of call. Matter of fact, a weird thing where a guy stuck his finger in my chest when I was a student at University of Pittsburgh and said, "God's calling you to be a pastor." I'm like, "What?"
That happened?
Oh, literally. Well, have you ever heard the name Bruce Wilkinson?
Yes.
Walk Through the Bible?
Yeah.
Well, it was him. It was back before he was just going around doing his thing around local churches, and I was a student at Pitt. And my pastor had taken an interest in me, and he wanted me to go to this Bible thing that Bruce was teaching. Well, after he was done teaching, we were down in the fellowship hall having punch and cake. And Bruce walks up to me and sticks a finger in my chest, and I'd never met him before. And he said, "God's calling you to be a pastor." Yeah. I mean, just out of the blue. And I was at a very seminal point in my life. And I said, okay. And I just acted on it. And, I tell people when it comes to calling, that doesn't happen very often, that you get a bolt out of the blue. It just happened to me. So at any rate,
you hadn't talked to Bruce at all? You didn't know him from Adam? Like he just...
No, I didn't know him at all. I never met him before in my life. And I don't know to this day, let me fast forward. I talked with him a number of years ago. And I said to him, "Bruce, you don't remember this, but here's what happened. And he said, no, he said, I don't remember doing that to you. He said, but I can't have done that more than 2 or 3 times in my entire life.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And they're crazy. So yeah, make a long story short, I sensed I was like I said, I was at a very vulnerable place in my life. And I said, okay, if that's what it is. So I felt initially in my 20s that I had this call in my life to be, as a matter of fact, it wasn't even pastor. I had no desire to be a senior pastor. I just wanted to do youth ministry. So I entered youth ministry, and after a number of years, I realized, no, wait a minute, this calling is more specific than that. And it's not just to be a youth pastor, but to pastor people and help them find who they are in Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, so I became a senior pastor, but after a period of time, I realized, no, you know what? It's more specific than that. As being a pastor, I was deeply committed to leadership development. I wanted to find leaders, men and women, and develop them as leaders for God's kingdom.
Yeah.
So what was happening is my calling was getting refined. Then about 15 years ago, I realized it was even more refined than that. I don't want to just develop leaders. I want to be in this place where I help people step into the summons on their life. And so, Darren, what happened was, my own life's an illustration. What I tell everybody that I'm coaching, calling, if you're paying attention to your life, calling tends to get more specific the older you get, as long as you're reacting to it. So now I'm 65 years old, and it is crystal clear what I'm about. That doesn't mean all those other callings were wrong. Matter of fact, they were all part of the iterative process of developing me to where I am today.
Yeah.
And that's what I help people. My job right now is to help people pay attention. What David Brooks, the writer, said, you will know your calling if you have open ears and open eyes and see your own life. And that's what I do. I'm committed. That's the idea that I'm living for right now.
It reminds me, I just got done interviewing Dr. Mark Moore, a friend of mine, and he said a statement, Dave, and I'm hearing his words as you're describing that, where he said, so much of a developing calling, he said, we get so wrapped up, in having the 5, 10, the 15-year vision and plan. And he said that God began to switch his mind in college to where he began to focus on becoming the kind of, like, growing in his relationship with God, where he was becoming the kind of person that would be willing to just step into God's call. And it was more about that, the character development and the trust development of becoming the kind of connected person to God, where, like you're saying, as he paid attention and he could trust God's heart, it was just a step-by-step process. And so was that, to be able to respond to a guy putting his finger in your chest, you grew up around the church. Was that the idea of believing that there was a loving, personal, directive, engaged God that would actually call people or summons people into a purpose? That wasn't new to you, was it?
Well, okay. So the idea of a personal God who was interested in my life, that was not new at all. The pastor I grew up with took a real interest in me, and he started to open my eyes to the idea of purpose, just in general.
Okay.
You're going to live on purpose. But that, I'll be honest with you, at that moment, I don't know that anybody had ever used the word calling. I don't even know I understood it. I don't even know, if you would have asked me at that moment, what is a calling? I would have said, I don't know. But I certainly experienced it through a guy with a finger in my chest.
Yeah.
And what I see, you already said this, but when a person pays attention enough and they're in tune with that, first of all, they accept the fact that there's a summons on their life. Okay. And that it was that summons, and I believe that summons was implanted before we were born. For those of your listeners or viewers who understand Ephesians 2:10, we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Yeah. In advance. Well, that idea compelled me. It started, my understanding of calling started as really raw, like emotionally go do this. And now it's a matter of just paying attention to what God is doing and then responding. When a person starts to have an inkling of what that calling is or what that destiny is, I always say to them, now, here's what I want you to do. Now that you are aware, I want you to take the next 14 days and watch what happens. And if you pay attention, I promise you in the next 14 days, that calling will manifest this. You'll have people coming to you out of left field because you're paying attention to that calling, and it's inevitable. It happens. It just happens. Because God, once we get like in tune with the summons on our life, then God says, okay, he or she's ready to go. Let's go.
Yeah. Dave, did that feel ever, I love the word summons. And at the same time, I know in my own journey, one of the things that I have fought, and I feel like people can fight sometimes, is viewing that idea of a calling or a summons on your life being limiting. Right? Like, wait a second, I have free will. I can do what I want. What do you mean? Like God has a summons on my life? This is a limiting thing here. I've come to discover, and I know I'm sure you're going to, unpack some of this, is that it's actually the most freeing thing you could ever step into. But what do you say to someone maybe that feels like that they're hearing you say that and they're going, wait a second, like I have dreams and ambitions, and I don't like that a summons that feels limiting.
Well, first of all, if a person feels limited by the idea of a calling on their life that is the fullest expression of who they are, okay? If they feel that's limiting, they're probably not ready to hear it.
Okay.
I think almost everybody comes to a point. Sometimes it comes through pain, tragedy, loss, failure, or even that whole, what am I here for? Inevitably, everyone gets to that point, and then they're like all ears. What is my calling? But, a lot of people start off their life and their goal is to, achieve the American dream, form their identity. They may not be ready to talk about calling, but I promise you they will be at some point. For two reasons. When life gets bewildering, it raises those kind of calling questions. And secondly, I still believe that calling, because it's summons, is the itch that everyone needs to be scratched. It needs to be scratched at some point, and it will feel that.
What's a couple of practical steps maybe, Dave, for someone who they're inspired by what you're saying and they're like, I think that's true, but maybe for them it's I remember I think maybe Calvin said it, John Calvin, and there's a couple of people that talked about that every every great knowledge or understanding in life comes from an ever increasing knowledge of God and of self. It's that the two sides of the coin there. And right. I think the problem can be either or, right? Some people, they have no idea how they uniquely could contribute. That idea of being, like you talk about the craftsmanship, the workmanship of God created, in Him, is they don't even understand that part of themselves. But I think maybe sometimes the bigger hurdle is this idea that I have a limited view of God or His character, and I struggle to trust Him. If maybe someone's inspired by what you're saying about calling, but they're not sure they can trust God in that, what's a way they could make some practical steps down that path?
Well, and when we're talking about trusting God, there's the character of God. And, that's a deeper conversation about an individual coming to grips with who they believe God is and who God is to them. That's it. That's the $1 million question. I know that's a passion of your life, helping direct people to God. But I would go one step further and say, when it comes to God, what is His will? And Jesus made it very clear, when He was asked, how should we pray? And He said, here's how you pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. And then He said this, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And all of a sudden we're exposed to what God's great desire is, and that is His kingdom would be made manifest in this world. So that's a huge truth because the world is broken. Okay. So I tell people this is where it gets a little more practical. If you can imagine a Venn diagram of two overlapping circles. Okay. There are two overlapping truths. Truth number one is an awesome truth. Truth number two is an awful truth. Okay. The awesome truth is what you and I were talking about, that individuals are masterpieces. Okay, God's created them with this, their life story, their skills, their personality, and their passions all define who they are. But at the same time, there's this broken world that God's concerned about. isolation, injustice, separation from God, pain, decay, hatred, these broken places of the world. So that awesome truth of who we are and the awful truth intersect. And where they intersect, that's a person's calling right there. That's their destiny. And, those two things would have to be understood. Number one is, who am I? My life story, my personality, my skills, and my passions. And what about the world have I been called to engage? And so, honestly, that's all I do. When I sit down with individuals or groups or organizations, that's all I try to do is help them find that intersection of the awful truth and the awesome truth. And that's about as practical. I mean, if a person is willing to actually consider those two truths and sit in it and work, they'll get there, and they'll find something they were designed for before they were born.
I feel like sometimes, Dave, maybe the awful truth circle is, I feel like the people, they may miss that sense of calling because they may figure out the first circle, right? This awesome truth, but then they apply it to a lot smaller circle. It's not an awful truth. It's more like just stuff I could be involved in. You know what I mean? Of like, and so they take these awesome abilities and then put them into something small like a career. And as a matter,
and careers are not bad things.
No,
careers
not bad.
Careers can be separate from calling, and calling can be intersected with careers. But I would agree with you. That's why when a person steps back, and maybe at first what they're trying to do is find too small a piece for them in the world, when there is much broader, something bigger that engages with the will of God. If you can get a person to lift their eyes to that and take that uniqueness of who they are and look at the bigness of God's will for this world. And I think you've probably seen this too, how many eyes explode, how many mouths drop open when they realize, wait a minute, you're telling me what about me that can impact the world? And that is something that's just compelling. And even if a person's career, job finances their calling, because they can intersect, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
When a person lives with a sense of calling, it's a game changer. Yeah. It's a game changer.
Well, I love, we got a chance to talk to the founder and CEO of Hope for Justice, a guy named Ben Cooley. He's an awesome, super energetic dude from the UK. The accent was awesome. And he asked a question, Dave, that just kind of wrecked me. And it's this awful truth. As he said, and it's funny, his story, he was a 26-year-old aspiring opera singer. And then before you know it, he is leading Hope for Justice. They have like 30 offices across the world fighting human trafficking. And he said, one of the questions that wrecked him was this idea of, what are you going to do about the world's greatest problems? Mm-hmm. And it was in this wrestling match to figure that out. He realized it's like, yeah, he could be an opera singer. There's nothing wrong with that. But as he began to open himself up of what place could I play in a much broader story, it's changed his life. And now he's literally changing the world. But I think a lot of people, Dave, struggle with believing that God could be that good, that he would invite them into something that grand.
Yeah. And one other thing about that, to a person, there might be people listening to us right now that feels like this is an obligation that we're talking about. Oh, you're just telling me I need to serve. No, what we're talking about here is the goodness and the grandness of God, the wonder of God, that he would take the uniqueness of you and open you up to the possibility of doing something that's on his heart.
Yeah.
When somebody tastes that is wonder. That is just wonder. If it's not wonder, it's not a calling. If it is not so energizing that it gets your attention, that's not a calling. It's just a duty. So it has to be something that feels like wonder.
Wow, that's so good.
And just a side note, I just finished a coaching process with a young woman in New Jersey. The wonder of the virus is it's opened the opportunity for me to do coaching around the world via Zoom. She sent me a text this morning. I don't think she'd mind. I'm gonna take a look at it here. This is what she said. This is wonder. This has been so transformational for me. God using you to speak life back into my dry bones. I feel more alive than I felt in a long time. I'm walking with a deep inner desire and drive to step out despite the fear that plagued me and the struggle with my own worth. I feel the tug of the Holy Spirit to step out of the comfortable, and he will catch me. He will catch me in the comfortable. That's wonder. So that's she's not moving in, and she if she were here, she would tell you what her calling is. And because she's learned it. And now she's like, she can't wait to get up in the morning.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so good. And what I love about it too, Dave, is that, and you're helping people discover this with Destiny Works, is like, she's not like the unique, special, chosen one. She's not like the Luke Skywalker of the deal, right? Like, she just got the awesome deal and everyone else gets the kind of crappy deal, and you just work and you do your thing. Like, this is literally like, what you talked about in Ephesians chapter 2, like, that is true for every single human being made in the image of God. Like, you're here on purpose and for purpose at this time in this place. And that is accessible to everyone.
Oh yeah. And most people have a hard time struggling with that because of the brokenness, some sort of level of pain or the bewilderment they've gone through. And they're thinking, who am I? Well, here's a fascinating little insight that I've learned over the last 10 or 15 years. One of the secrets to calling is found in your pain or your brokenness. Yeah. There is a thing that God does. Was it Amos or Joel? I can't remember now, who said, God redeems the years that the locusts have taken. Is that Joel? And at any rate, I told her this because if you would hear this young lady's story, it is full of locusts. I mean, just her life got ate up. It was a mess. And yet what God did is he redeemed all that brokenness and has actually leveraged that brokenness for the wonder that is her calling. And that's what God does with all of us. That's why this stuff is so spectacular and not just grudging duty.
Yes. So good. One thing I want to bring it back to your journey a little bit too, Dave, because there's an interesting dynamic, I think, in your journey and stepping into destiny. And I love that you're using so much of where God's leading you. And I think we have to, right? Because it's our journey, it's our story, it's where we have probably our strongest authority. Is for you, I've been a church planner, I've been a local church pastor. I'm still involved in local church work. I'm not on staff at a church, but you served in a great, impactful, amazing church here in the Indianapolis area. You gave 42 years to serving the local church, and just this year, you're stepping outside of that role. And I know working in the church, when you're Pastor Darren or Pastor Dave, and that has been an all-encompassing part of your identity. And sometimes it can cloud and distract. Sometimes it's just not in an unhealthy way. It's just who you are. You're Pastor Dave and you're associated with this. What has the process been like for you to say, you know what? I know, like you said, every step you're editing down, you're more narrowly focusing in a sense of destiny and calling. But this step over the past couple of years had to take an immense amount of courage, humility, wisdom. Talk a little bit about that of what has been able to lead you to say, you know what, something that I've given 42 years of my life on, I know that I have to not necessarily walk away from it, but I've got to take a deeper step into who God called me to be.
Well, it's so complicated. For me to reduce it is probably not fair to the process God has me in, but it's a push. It was a push and a pull. So the push came from God himself about, what is it now? 10, longer than that, years ago. 10 years ago. I was on a sabbatical, and which is a great privilege of being a pastor. Not every pastor gets a sabbatical, but I had a chance to get away and process and think. And that's where the push happened. And it's one of that sense of discontent that started to bubble in me saying, I think it's time for you to consider moving. And at that point, I honestly didn't know what it was going to be, Darren. I mean, I just had a sense that my time had come. I had been at that point, 38 years or 33 years, I should say, in ministry. Yeah. So there was this push that was hard to describe and mystical. And at that point, it felt strong enough that I went immediately back after sabbatical, sat down with our leaders, staff and our leader, and I said, hey, here's what's happening. We need to start the process of succession. So that was the push. Well, while that was going on, through a series of circumstances, the idea of probing destiny and calling with individuals was the pull. So I started getting pulled at the same time into a deeper understanding of how to help people into their destiny. So I was being pushed out of where I was and I was being pulled into the new thing at the same time. And so that push-pull, when I look back on it now, I mean, it's easy for me to say, but there were times it was miserable too.
Well, I was going to say that just the push part, and forgive me for asking you to boil down and continue your journey into
right.
But I want to get a little bit of it, because there's got to be somebody that's listening, and if they're not here now, they're going to receive a little push like that from God, and they may not be in a local church pastorate. Maybe they've been running a company for a decade or 2 decades, or they've been in a career that has been very defining to them, that they've loved. And I just can't imagine that had to be an absolute wrestling match to come back and to say, hey guys, I think it's time for me to begin the process of letting go of everything that has given me like identity and strength and authority and power. Like that's a major push.
Yeah, it was, because really it wasn't like we were failing or things were, I mean, there was no struggle, but it was a clear push.
And does that have it? I mean, we talked about that idea of becoming the kind of person that would naturally and agreeably, right, walk in obedience into God's call. So that has to speak to, I mean, just our need to continue to grow in our the closeness to God, right? That you would trust Him enough to say, okay, I'm not going to fight you tooth and nail as you push me forward.
Right. It's not, and I know this is kind of a cliche in some Christian circles, but it is that open palmed approach. Here I am. Yeah. I'm not, it's a great illustration between the closed fist and the open palm. The closed fist can either mean I'm punching or I'm pulling in. An open palm says, I'm not fighting you. Then I think the riskiest thing is the hardest thing for me was to say it out loud. When I sensed the push and started to feel the pull, to say to the people I trust and love, and this was crucial, I'm feeling this. Here's what I'm thinking. Talk to me. Does this seem right to you? I got the thumbs up from my wife. I got the thumbs up from my family. I got the thumbs up from our leadership. And they were like, we don't want you to leave. We don't want you to move on.
Right.
But we affirm with you, if this is the push on your life, if this is the call on your life, then we're with you, and we'll go with you on it.
Are shifts like that in life possible without community like that, Dave?
Hardly. I can't imagine having gone through this transformation without help, or without love, without care, without community. So yeah, it's hardly possible. Those are massive life changes. Need the community of God.
Unpack a little bit the other side, the pull. Unpack a little bit more of that process.
Well, so that it actually had a starting point, and I don't even know. It was probably 15 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever. Can't remember. One of our pastors, who was in charge of our interns at the time, said to me, "Hey, Dave, I'm doing this training thing with the interns, and they keep asking me about calling. So could you come in and talk about calling?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, right. I didn't prepare. I thought I was going to wing it." So I walk in. I'm standing in front of these interns, and all of a sudden I realized, what the heck have I done? I don't even. So I said, "Okay, you want to know what calling is?" And I stood there for a second, and all of a sudden this picture came to mind of a quilt. And a quilt is like, everybody's grandma has a.
My grandma did quilting. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're patches. They're patches of fabric that are sewn together, and they're little patches of pieces that make one big thing. And I said to them, your life is like a quilt. It's full of patches. Your personality, your life story, your skills, your education, all your experiences are like little patches. When you weave the patches together onto a big quilt and you step back and look at the quilt, you get a picture of the whole of who you are, and you start connecting the dots, you can see a calling emerge. And literally, Darren, that happened on the spot. It was like, I don't know if I'm embarrassed that it came out like that, or I feel, or blown away.
Hey, I love those moments because you can't take any credit for it, right? It's like, all right, man, that was a download. I appreciate it, right?
There was no thanks for the rescue. So that's where it started. And all of a sudden, I walked out of that room and I thought, wow, yeah, that's true. What you just said is true. And that's essentially the pull and the push started to happen about the same time.
Wow. So now you stepped into it. You're doing Destiny Works, obviously informed and equipped with, all of the 42 years of local church experience, being able to pastor, to lead, to inspire thousands and thousands of people. And now the work is what's the word I want to use? It's more focused. You don't have, you're not standing in front of thousands every week. You're across the table, or now even across Zoom with individuals that, and not that I'm not saying, like I said, I'm in local church work. I'm not saying that local church work is not deep, but it can be very broad sometimes where you're working more with the masses in that role. What has been the fulfillment of slowing down in that and being able to drive deeper with less people, Dave?
Well, yeah, the answer is in your question. It's fulfilling when you can go from, I want to take a person who's at A and I want to get them to B. If A, they don't know who they are, where they are, and I want to get them to B. Yeah. And my personality is such that also drives me. I want to get people from A to B. That's the way I wrote my sermons. That's the way I led the church. I want to move this church from A to B, whatever we define B to B. So that's fulfilling. And I would also say I'm not just what's really cool is I'm not just doing this with individuals. I'm doing this with organizations. Mm-hmm. And one of the most fulfilling things I'm doing right now is doing the Destiny workshops with a national fraternity. And I stood in front of 80 guys at LSU and 100 guys at Iowa State and 60 guys at Ball State. And watching a whole room full of young 20-somethings light up when you start talking about calling. Ooh, that's a rush. Yeah. To watch that happen. So yeah, it's deeply fulfilling. This text message I got this morning from this young lady, that's deeply fulfilling. And it's not, okay, maybe it'll sound like I have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm thrilled to be able to watch what happens to her, to them. But I see on the other side of it what is going to happen when she invests her life in her calling and the people that I will never meet, whose lives have been changed because this woman got a hold of the summons on her life. Yeah. And that gets me up in the morning.
I love that, Dave. And it comes back to so much, right, where I think about the words of Jesus of, when it's when you lose your life, that you find it as you give yourself away. And as, as your life is given to invest and unlock the dreams, of other people, the ripple effect of what that is. And the great part is that you don't lose or lack passion, excitement, fulfillment. Name all the positive adjectives of what you can get out of giving your life to serve others. But it's like, that's where the sweet stuff is, to be able to look back and go, I've given my life and invested it to unlock the dreams and the passions and the call of God, in the life of others. And really that I think any calling that is a part of God's kingdom, that in its essence, that's what it's going to be.
Oh yeah. That's why I go back to that word. It's a wonder. We think of, Jesus said, you need to deny yourself, take up your cross daily. That's intense. Yeah. It sounds like, I don't know that I'm ready for that. But when you're working your calling, maybe I'm overstating here, the idea of dying to myself daily, as long as I'm doing it within my calling, sign me up.
Mm.
It's a great wonder. And I will do whatever he calls me. If he's called me to that and I engage in that, it goes way beyond responsibility. It goes to privilege.
Duty or wonder. That's my takeaway, Dave, is just to seek that in my life. Anytime that I'm feeling like something's moving towards duty, I'm probably moving away from the essence of calling, because it's going to be a deeper step into wonder, into adventure, into faith, into hope and love. So beautiful. Dave, if people, they're inspired, they want to stay connected, they would, maybe they want you to have you come in, work with their team, work with their coach, their team or their company, their church or an individual. How do they get connected? What does it look like to get connected to Destiny Works?
Well, see, just go to my website, Destiny-Works, destiny-works.com.
Okay.
And there they can see what I do. And there's a, contact me page, email me, and all of that information's on the website. That's probably the easiest. I got a workshop coming up, as a matter of fact, in October that people could sit in. It's kind of a taste of this.
What's the date for that?
October 17th. It's Saturday. It's Saturday morning, 9 to noon.
Is it going to be virtual, Zoom?
It'll be virtual, it'll be Zoom.
Okay.
The interesting thing is when I started this, launching a business in a pandemic, don't recommend it. I do not recommend it, but it's going. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, it's my website's the easiest, destiny-works.com.
Dave, thank you so much for being with us. We'll put the website in the show notes and push that out. I just thank you for your, just personally, thank you for being on the podcast, but bigger than that, thank you for taking this step. Because it's just, I know there's an element for you that I know it's scary. There's no guarantee of, success. There never is in anything. You just keep waking up every day and stepping into that calling. But as a fellow sojourner on this journey of calling and seeking to see God's kingdom come and his will be done in our life and on the world, to walk in your footsteps and draft off the momentum of your life, and to see you continue to take risks and just continue to say yes to where God's leading you. It inspires me. It humbles me, and I can't wait to see what happens with Destiny Works. And I know folks are going to be inspired by our interview today, and it means the world. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's a privilege, Darren. Thank you for having me on, and I wish the best for you as you continue to plow forward and figure out what's the next step in your destiny. One
day at a time, right? Stepping into the wonder. Stepping into the wonder. I love it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. You're welcome. Take care.
And we're back. How was interview land for you this time? For me, it was great. I loved it. Dave Rodriguez, 40 years the pastor of Grace Church here in Indy. Helped start the church. They were in a warehouse, and before you know it, they've got a beautiful building. They got thousands of people. Grace Church, still a great church here on the north side of Indianapolis. But just, man, oh man, I was a church planner in my 20s, and we didn't grow a church to thousands and thousands of people, and I didn't do it for 40 years. I did it for 8. And walking away from that which I created was one of the most painful and difficult things I've done thus far in my life. And so I as I'm talking to Dave, and maybe you could hear it in my questions with him of like, man, how could you walk away? Like the weight of that 40 years, like if you've been here in Indy, like Dave Rod, like that, everybody knows who Dave Rod is. Hey, Dave Rod. Oh, he's the Grace guy, right? Yeah. Dave Rod. Like, I don't know if you've had a successful job or done well where you've been known by your job, or people could say like Grace Church and they go, yeah, Dave Rod. Or they say Dave Rod. Like, if you have a job in a career that's been successful to the point that people know who you are and can recognize you by like a nickname, like that feels good. Okay, let's not like get away from that. We all like success. No one wants to start and be like, you know what I'm looking for? I'd love to do 40 years of just anonymity, just 40 years, where no one knows who I am. Just, I'd love to be forgotten. Nobody wants that. We want to be known. We want to make a difference. And for Dave, for 40 years to be successful, and to walk away from it, that is stepping into the wonder of calling and trust of God. I love what Dave talked about, this push and the pull into the next adventure of God's calling in your life. And if you're at a crossroads, you're at a crisis right now, you need to look right now for the push and the pull. as Dave talked about, the push from God of discontent, meaning that you're at a place where something is not right. You do not have a peace. Jesus said he was gentle and humble at heart, right? And he was going to give you rest for your soul. If you're at a place right now where you don't have rest, you have unrest, you have unease, you have discontent, don't slough it off. Look into it. Get curious with Jesus and say, are you pushing me? Are you pushing me into a next adventure? And maybe it's time to stop fighting that. Bring it into conversation like Dave talked about with people that you trust, in conversation with God, and begin paying attention, because God's not playing hide and seek, guys, and he's not playing a big game of let's make a deal. I remember I thought that getting out of college. I remember meeting with a mentor pastor of mine in a ministry that I had started that was the dream of my whole life, to be in a band. It freaking blew up in my face, and it was dead, and I thought my life was over, and I remember trying to figure out the next step, and I remember telling this pastor that I felt like that we were playing a huge game of red light, green light, or a huge game of let's make a deal. Remember that show where the people would dress up and they'd be like, oh, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, and like door number 1 was a new car, and door number 3 was like a pile of elephant crap. And like that's what I thought, is that God was just like waiting for me to choose so he could laugh and be like, oh, look, I ruined Darren's life. What a moron. He deserved it for all the sin. God isn't like that. And so you can lean into these moments and say, God, I'm feeling discontented in where I am. I don't have peace. I'm following you. I'm learning to trust you, but I need to step into the wonder and allow you to push me into the next adventure. And then that idea where it talks about pulling you into passion and calling. Listening to the tears of your life as they lead you to your destiny. Allow him to pull you into passion, to pull you into calling. So powerful. And listen, if you're here and you say, Darren, I don't know. I don't know my next step. I feel frozen. Then I would ask you this: do you know the awesome truth about you? And if you don't, your next step is to go take Spiritual DNA. Spiritual DNA is a course that I created 2015, a long time ago, and I've been continuing to tweak it as it grows. We're about to do a relaunch of the whole course in January. I'm so stoked to get that out to you guys. But here's the deal, is I created Spiritual DNA out of this problem for myself. I didn't believe the awesome truth about myself, and I went on a multi-year journey to figure it out so that I could unlock God's calling in my life. And if you're stuck there and you need to believe the awesome truth, then go take Spiritual DNA. Go to spiritualdna.me, buy the course, go through the videos, take the assessments, get a part of our private Facebook group where we can actually talk and grow together. Keep listening to the podcast. Take the steps. That's why this ministry exists. Spiritualdna.me, your next step. Or if you're at a place right now where God is pulling you into passion, I want to encourage you to bring some trusted people into that place. Ask questions, dig, and ask God to give you courage. Ask God to open your eyes and wrestle with the question that we keep coming back to time and time again on the podcast, is what are you going to do about the world's biggest problems? And it may be the world right across the street from you. This doesn't mean you got to go to Africa or Cambodia or China. It may mean that you just say, God, what are the biggest problems right around me, and how do I step into it? It could be becoming a math tutor for kids. It could be helping pack, food for the hungry. It could be mentoring troubled kids. It could be visiting people in prison. I don't know what it is. It could be serving at your church with the nursery. I don't know what it is, but guess who does? Jesus, who is gentle and humble at heart, and he has invited you to come to him. Oh, this one got me out of breath, guys. I'm going to be honest. I got to take the jacket off of this. I got a little sweat going on because I was getting fired up about calling. Hey, reach out to us. If you got questions, comments, epiphanies from the podcast, you can email me, Darren, at blackbirdmission.com, or send me a text, 317-550-5070. We got Giving Tuesday coming up around the corner. We had a commercial in this episode. Would love for you to partner with us financially on Giving Tuesday and allow us to continue to take this message and this mission around the world. It means the world that you listen. It means so much when you reach out. Thanks so much. Remember these three things. God is for you, not against you. He is near you, not far away. And he's created you on purpose and for a purpose. Talk to you next time, right here on the Darren Early Wine Podcast.